The landscape of modern cinematic anticipation is a battlefield where art, legacy, and contemporary discourse clash long before the house lights ever fade in a crowded theater. In an era dominated by instant digital reactions and hyper-accelerated cultural commentary, a motion picture no longer premieres in a vacuum. Instead, it arrives carrying the heavy baggage of months of speculation, online warfare, and high-profile disputes. This summer, the global cinematic landscape is bracing itself for what was supposed to be a purely artistic milestone, the highly anticipated theatrical release of an epic vision crafted by one of the most celebrated directors of our generation, Christopher Nolan. For years, rumors circulated about how the mastermind behind complex narratives of time, space, and human psychology would approach ancient mythology. And when it was finally confirmed that he would be translating the oldest surviving adventure story of Western civilization for the silver screen, the world took notice. The promise of a grand-scale, meticulous attention to practical effects and a deep psychological exploration of ancient heroism immediately positioned the upcoming feature film as a potential masterpiece. Audiences were ready to be transported thousands of years in the past into a world of mythic voyages, treacherous waters, and the agonizingly slow journey home of a hero trapped between the whims of gods and his own mortality. Yet as the July release date looms closer, the narrative surrounding this cinematic monolith has shifted dramatically away from the craftsmanship of its auteur director and onto a fierce public debate that exposes the deepest cultural rifts of our modern digital age. To fully understand the engine gripping the entertainment industry today, one must look at how the machinery of blockbuster filmmaking has evolved to intersect with the loud, unfiltered world of social media platforms. In the past, a movie was judged by the critics who attended early press screenings and by the audiences who bought tickets on opening weekend, but today, a project can find itself at the center of a massive controversy before a single frame has been viewed by the general public. This phenomenon has created a strange reality where opinions are formed and battles are fought based entirely on casting announcements, teaser trailers, and the public statements of prominent figures. When news first broke that the upcoming adaptation would tackle the legendary tales of the Trojan War and its aftermath, scholars, film enthusiasts, and casual viewers alike began speculating on how the legendary characters would be brought to life. The expectations were astronomical, given the director's historic track record of transforming historical and complex narratives into immersive cinematic experiences that challenge the viewer's intellect while delivering breathtaking spectacles. However, instead of a unified celebration of artistic ambition, the pre-release window has been clouded by a relentless wave of criticism, skepticism, and high-profile name-calling that threatens to overshadow the immense creative effort of the production. As we stand on the precipice of this monumental theatrical launch, it becomes essential to dissect the layers of this unfolding drama and examine how a centuries-old epic became the ultimate flashpoint for a modern ideological war. If you want to stay updated on all the latest developments, behind-the-scenes insights, and deep-dive analyses of the biggest cultural events shaping the entertainment world today, make sure to hit the subscribe button and join our growing community of passionate film lovers. The heart of the current storm lies in the delicate and often contentious process of casting historic or mythological figures for a modern global audience. For generations, the stories of ancient Greece have been adapted across various media, with each era projecting its own values, aesthetics, and cultural biases onto the timeless characters created by Homer. When a director of immense stature decides to breathe new life into a narrative as foundational as the Trojan cycle, every single creative choice is magnified 1,000 times under the microscope of public scrutiny. The announcement of the ensemble cast was meant to signal a bold, multifaceted exploration of a legendary family dynamic torn apart by war, betrayal, and a decade of separation. The production sought out performers capable of carrying the immense emotional weight of characters who are simultaneously larger-than-life figures of myth and deeply flawed, relatable human beings. The artistic vision behind the film evidently aimed to present a fresh, visceral interpretation of the ancient world, stripping away the sanitized, Hollywood glamour stereotypes of the mid-20th century to deliver something raw, powerful, and intellectually stimulating. But in a fragmented media landscape where nuance is often sacrificed for engagement, these artistic decisions were quickly weaponized by commentators looking to validate their own pre-existing narratives about the state of the entertainment industry. The initial wave of skepticism soon hardened into organized online opposition. transforming a highly anticipated summer blockbuster into a digital battleground where the boundaries between film criticism and cultural politics became completely blurred. As the days count down to the official theatrical premiere on July 17th, the online vitriol has only intensified, drawing in tech billionaires, Hollywood veterans, and prominent public intellectuals into a rapidly escalating war of words. What began as standard internet grumbling over casting choices has transformed into a high-stakes debate about artistic integrity, historical representation, and the influence of modern social movements on the creative process. The controversy has taken on a life of its own, fueled by viral social media posts, quote tweets, and public callouts that have captured the attention of millions of onlookers worldwide. While the director himself remains notoriously detached from the digital news cycle, preferring to let his work speak for itself from the quiet confines of editing bays and sound mixing stages. The actors and historical consultants associated with the project have found themselves on the front lines of a chaotic cultural crossfire. This intense pre-release friction raises fundamental questions about the future of creative expression and the pressures faced by contemporary filmmakers when navigating the minefields of public opinion. Can a piece of art still be judged on its own cinematic merits? Or is the modern audience now incapable of separating a film from the digital noise that precedes it? As the global community prepares for the unveiling of this massive cinematic gamble, the world watches with bated breath to see whether the film will triumph over its detractors or become a casualty of the very platform designed to amplify its presence. The ideological battlefield surrounding this cinematic endeavor found its most vocal and influential antagonist in the tech billionaire and social media mogul Elon Musk, whose digital footprint frequently shapes public discourse on a global scale. Long before the recent flare-up involving prominent historians, Musk had already planted his flag firmly in the camp of the film's harshest critics, transforming standard cinematic skepticism into a high-profile crusade against what he perceives as systemic cultural issues within contemporary Hollywood. The genesis of his intense public opposition dates back to the initial casting announcements, which sent shockwaves through certain segments of the internet. The primary lightning rod for this initial wave of controversy was the casting of the celebrated Kenyan-Mexican actor Lupita Nyong'o, an Academy Award-winning performer renowned for her immense dramatic range, emotional depth, and powerful screen presence. In a bold and unconventional narrative choice characteristic of Christopher Nolan's complex storytelling, Nyong'o was cast to portray a dual role of immense mythological significance, Helen of Troy. Traditionally described in classical Greek literature as the face that launched 1,000 ships and the most beautiful woman in the world alongside her fierce and tragic sister, Clytemnestra, the queen whose vengeance and political ambition would tear the house of Atreus apart, this creative decision to have a single, highly accomplished black actress embody both of these monumental pillars of ancient narrative immediately drew the ire of Musk and a vocal contingent of online commentators who viewed the casting through a hyper-politicized lens. For Musk, this was not an inspired artistic choice designed to explore themes of identity, fate, or the psychological dualities of sisterhood in the ancient world. Instead, he publicly branded the casting as a cynical manifestation of modern diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, commonly referred to as DEI. Utilizing the immense reach of his personal social media platform, Musk amplified voices that claimed the casting was an explicit dismissal of historical accuracy and an intentional insult to the foundational authors of Western literature. When a user on the platform asserted that such casting choices proved that the underlying story was never the primary point of the production and constituted a direct affront to the classical tradition, Musk escalated the rhetoric significantly by replying directly to the post, declaring that Christopher Nolan had lost his integrity. This public condemnation from one of the wealthiest and most influential individuals on Earth immediately elevated the film's pre-release discourse from a niche cinematic debate into a raging cultural phenomenon, forcing industry insiders and audiences alike to take a side in an increasingly polarized conflict. The fallout from Musk's initial declarations was swift, prompting strong defenses from within the entertainment industry and highlighting the deep divide between Hollywood's creative community and the billionaire's digital followers. Among the most prominent figures to step into the fray in defense of Lupita Nyong'o and the production's artistic freedom was veteran actor Alec Baldwin, who chose to address the tech mogul directly through a public post on Instagram. Baldwin, Drawing upon his decades of experience within the film industry and his understanding of theatrical traditions, sought to counter Musk's political framing by returning the focus to pure aesthetic and artistic appreciation. Writing a direct message that read, "Dear Elon, but she is the most beautiful woman in the world." This defense sought to validate Nolan's choice by emphasizing that Nyong'o possessed the exact ethereal, captivating quality required to portray a figure as legendary as Helen of Troy, suggesting that true beauty and star power transcend the narrow, rigid boundaries of racial categorization that critics were using to judge the film. However, rather than de-escalating the situation, this high-profile defense only solidified the battle lines. And Musk showed absolutely no intention of letting up on his relentless criticism of the film as the promotional campaign marched forward into the summer. As the theatrical release date of July 17th crept closer, the tension surrounding the production found a new explosive focal point through an unexpected digital confrontation involving the acclaimed British historian and author Tom Holland. Known globally for his definitive non-fiction works on the ancient world, including best-selling histories of the Roman and Persian empires, Holland represents a bridge between serious classical scholarship and popular culture, making his perspective on a mythological epic uniquely weighty. On a seemingly quiet Tuesday, Holland took to the social media platform to share his genuine enthusiasm for the upcoming film, posting a link to an article that highlighted a wave of exceptionally positive early reviews from critics who had been granted advanced access to the production. In his post, Holland sought to inject a dose of intellectual sobriety into the chaotic online discourse, writing that there was more praise for the Odyssey from people who, shockingly, have actually waited to see it before giving their opinion. This pointed remark was a clear swipe at the legions of internet commentators, including Musk himself, who had spent months trashing a film they had not yet seen based entirely on ideological grievances and promotional trailers. The historian's defense of the film's artistic merit immediately drew a hostile reaction from the anti-woke digital ecosystem that has grown increasingly hostile to mainstream cultural productions. An anonymous user on the platform quickly quote-tweeted Holland's optimistic post, dismissively declaring to their followers that this might be the worst movie ever made, a statement entirely unburdened by any actual knowledge of the film's contents or cinematic execution. Seeing an opportunity to double down on his long-running campaign against the movie, Elon Musk seized upon this negative tweet to launch a direct, highly personal insult at the prominent historian. In a reply that stunned many mainstream onlookers for its blunt vulgarity and lack of intellectual substance, Musk wrote simply that Tom Holland is such a cuck. By utilizing a derogatory internet slang term explicitly intended to emasculate and humiliate an opponent, the billionaire signaled that he was no longer interested in even a superficial debate about casting integrity or historical representation. Instead, the conflict had devolved into a raw, digital street fight designed to silence anyone who dared to express optimism for Nolan's classical vision, rather than being intimidated by the immense digital power and aggressive followers of the platform's owner. Tom Holland chose to respond almost immediately, delivering a sharp, calculated counterpunch that resonated across the internet. Writing directly over Musk's crude insult, the historian refused to back down from his scholarly and critical assessment of the movie, asserting that he was very happy to say it again. Holland went on to passionately defend the creative triumph of the production, stating that The Odyssey is an amazing film, and missing out on seeing it because you think it's woke, or whatever, is cutting off your nose to spite your face. He then punctuated his defense with a concise, definitive phrase that perfectly captured his dismissive attitude toward the billionaire's crusade: "Your loss." This rapid and unapologetic response from a soft-spoken academic completely upended the dynamic of the confrontation, turning the billionaire's attempt at public humiliation into a showcase of intellectual resilience and dignified defiance that instantly captured the imagination of the wider public. The lightning-fast exchange between the tech billionaire and the esteemed British academic ignited a massive firestorm across the digital landscape, transforming a standard pre-release movie controversy into an absolute viral sensation. Within hours of the confrontation, Tom Holland's masterful and composed counterpunch began accumulating staggering numbers of views, retweets, and interactions, rapidly eclipsing the original insult hurled by the platform's owner. The historian's defiant post earned over 50,000 likes in record time, creating a massive digital imbalance that internet culture frequently refers to as a ratio, For an ordinary user to outperform a public figure in engagement is notable. But for a classical historian to decisively outperform the multi-billionaire owner of the very platform hosting the discussion was seen by millions as a historic and deeply ironic public defeat. Across various digital communities, observers immediately began dissecting the broader cultural significance of the moment, celebrating Holland's refusal to be intimidated by crude internet slang or aggressive corporate influence. On major discussion forums like Reddit, the reaction was overwhelmingly supportive of the academic, with users flocking to entertainment and news threads to praise his calm yet devastating demeanor. One widely upvoted commenter enthusiastically declared that Tom Holland is my historian GOAT, using the popular acronym for greatest of all time to highlight his new status as a cultural hero at the same time. The public condemnation of Musk's aggressive behavior reached a fever pitch, with thousands of onlookers expressing genuine revulsion at the casual vulgarity displayed by one of the most prominent leaders of the modern tech industry. Many users pointed out the deep irony of a tech mogul attempting to police artistic expression while simultaneously championing absolute free speech on his network. Another prominent commentator described Musk's public remarks as absolutely disgusting, arguing that such behavior degrades the quality of public discourse and turns legitimate artistic debates into toxic personal attacks. Conversely, Holland was widely lauded for maintaining his composure under intense digital pressure, with one observer noting that Tom seems like a class act, followed by the classic adage that when they go low, we go high. This contrast in behavior became the central narrative of the viral event, framing the dispute not merely as a disagreement over a Hollywood film, but as a symbolic clash between dignified intellectualism and unchecked digital hostility. The comedy of the situation was further elevated when internet sleuths and casual jokers began pointing out a hilarious possibility regarding Musk's potential confusion over the historian's identity. A wave of satirical posts and memes swept through the internet, with people jokingly suggesting that the tech billionaire was 100% convinced he was attacking the famous young Hollywood actor Tom Holland, rather than the middle-aged British author of non-fiction historical books. This theory gained immense traction because the actor Tom Holland happens to play a major role in Christopher Nolan's epic production, portraying Telemachus, the fiercely loyal and embattled son of the central hero, Odysseus. The thought of a global tech leader mistakenly launching a bitter personal crusade against an academic while intending to target a blockbuster movie star added a layer of profound absurdity to the entire saga. Users took immense pleasure in roasting the billionaire for getting so thoroughly outmaneuvered and outvoted in terms of public engagement on the platform that he physically purchased and controls. Imagine being the richest man in the world and still getting ratioed on a platform you literally own, one viral post remarked, gathering tens of thousands of shares from amused onlookers. Another individual simply added that the entire situation was absolutely hilarious, cementing the event as one of the most memorable and chaotic public relations backfires in recent social media history. Interestingly, this massive wave of online conflict and high-profile drama had an entirely unintended consequence for the film's distribution and marketing campaign, as it sparked a massive surge of curiosity among audiences who had previously been indifferent to the project. Millions of people who had not been actively tracking the development of Christopher Nolan's latest cinematic gamble suddenly found themselves intensely fascinated by a film that could provoke such extreme reactions from the world's most powerful elites. For many casual viewers, the intense disapproval from a controversial tech figure acted as a massive reverse psychology endorsement, convincing them that the film must be a bold, provocative, and highly original piece of art worth experiencing on the largest screen possible. "I cannot wait to see this movie now, my lord," wrote one eager commenter on an entertainment news forum, capturing a sentiment shared by thousands of newly minted fans who vowed to buy tickets for opening night out of sheer solidarity with the creative team. The controversy effectively transformed the upcoming feature into a must-see cultural event, proving once again that in the modern entertainment ecosystem, intense public friction can often be the most powerful form of free advertising a studio could ever hope to receive. As the internet continued to debate the fallout of the viral clash, the historian at the center of the storm seemed completely unbothered and detached from the ongoing digital chaos. Refusing to engage in further petty arguments or validate additional insults, Tom Holland offered a final definitive word on the matter that beautifully reframed the entire discussion around pure cinematic appreciation. In a closing tweet that resonated deeply with film enthusiasts worldwide, he wrote that if you like Nolan's other cinematic works, you will absolutely love The Odyssey, but if you did not enjoy his previous films, then you should simply miss it. This elegant formulation stripped away all the toxic political noise, the bad faith arguments about diversity initiatives, and the personal animosity, returning the focus squarely to the artistic style and track record of the visionary director behind the project. It reminded the global audience that a film should ultimately be judged by its cinematic execution, its narrative depth, and its visual mastery, rather than the endless culture wars that play out on digital screens every single day, with the highly anticipated theatrical release officially scheduled for July 17th. The stage is now set for one of the most fascinating box office showdowns in recent memory. The journey of this monumental film from a highly secretive production to a lightning rod for global ideological debates highlights the strange, hyper-reactive world that contemporary cinema must navigate to reach an audience. Christopher Nolan's ambitious attempt to translate Homer's timeless exploration of human resilience, trauma, and the eternal quest for home will finally face its truest and most important critics, the actual theater-going public. Whether the film proves to be an undeniable artistic triumph that silences its vocal detractors or a divisive experiment that fuels further debate, its place in the cultural zeitgeist of this year is already securely guaranteed. For film lovers, historians, and casual observers alike, the approaching premiere offers a rare opportunity to step away from the exhausting digital noise of social media platforms and immerse oneself in the pure, dark magic of a communal theatrical experience. There is an undeniable irony that an ancient text about a hero surviving monstrous obstacles and treacherous psychological trials has mirrored its own narrative journey in the modern world, fighting its way through a sea of digital monsters to finally reach the shores of public consensus. As the final countdown begins, the anticipation among true cinema enthusiasts has reached a fever pitch, with millions around the world preparing to witness history unfold on the silver screen. I will certainly be seated in the front row come July 17th to see this epic vision come to life, and the only question that remains is, what about you?